Here's a preview of what you'll hear on this episode of Beyond the Wheel.
We really want to be a one-stop shop. You can come here and you can have flooring done. You can have new cabinets made. You can have your batteries done. We can, or we can gut the whole thing and start over again if you want, so that's kind of what we're all about. So, and then also really we are not guys who have lost pride in our work.
Now enjoy the show.
You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
This episode is brought to you by Battleborn Batteries. Battleborn batteries are the best name in the RV and marine industry. These batteries are designed to replace your existing lead-acid batteries. They come in a variety of dimensions and amp-hour capacities. This ensures there's a Battleborn battery that is right for your needs. These batteries are backed by a 10-year warranty, allowing you to get out there and stay out there. The best solution for your battery anxiety.
Whether your adventure is on the road, on the water, or off the grid, Battleborn batteries keep you out there longer.
With the complexity of all the systems in an RV, I always say it's not if something's going to break, but a matter of when is something going to break. That is why I think an extended warranty for RVs is so important. We first interviewed wholesale warranties back in 2019 and immediately became impressed with how their policies worked, such as you can take your RV to any licensed repair shop, including mobile repairs. They also have personalized service plans, making sure you are getting the right policy for your needs. And if you think your RV is too old for a policy, you might be surprised to hear that RVs up to 20 years old can still be approved for a policy. That is more age lenient than most RV parks I've stayed at. Go to wholesalewarranties.com/Beyond the Wheel or click the link down below in our show notes to get your free quote today.
There are a lot of subsets in the RV community. Just off the top of my head, I can think of overlanding, van life, and schoolies. In this episode, Aaron from Hightail Custom Coach teaches us about the vintage bus community. He has worked in this community for many years. I was not aware of how popular vintage bus conversions were until we had this conversation. So let's get into this both educational and fascinating interview.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for joining us today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Hightail Custom Coach?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, fellas. Yeah, so let's see. I started in the coach industry about 18 years ago. I've been doing carpentry work, my whole life, basically. I was kind of raised in a family of people who work with their hands, and I was always pretty highly regarded, in my family. I started doing carpentry work at a pretty young age, and then I went to college for a little while, but honestly, I just didn't get it. Yeah, I just didn't. I did all right there, but I didn't understand how I was going to take the political science classes I was taking and turn that into some kind of an income or a career. It just didn't make sense to me. In my head, it's like, no, you have to make things to make a living, right? So I left school and got into the coach industry there. I worked for Monaco for a year or so, worked for Legendary Coach, and then I met this guy, Larry Oberfall, who had a shop called Paradise Coach Interiors, and he just did little one-off custom jobs. And it was at that time, it was just him building them by himself. And so I was just really struck by the idea that I would be able to learn how to do everything there. So, one of the things about working in any RV manufacturer is you either build the cabinets or you install them, but you don't do both, and you are either going to run the wire or you're going to hook up the lights and outlets, but you don't get to do both. I really wanted to do everything. And so I just hounded this guy to give me a job. And I remember he goes, well, can you build a cabinet? And I was like, sure, I can build a cabinet. Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right, well, you can start Monday. And I literally left and went to Barnes & Noble and bought a book on cabinet building and read it over the weekend. And then I came in on Monday and I was like, so do you guys use tub screws on your face frames? And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was, I don't know. So anyway, I faked my way in there, but I was like real eager. I I really fell in love with woodworking. And it was the first thing that I'd come across that I thought, I saw, I'd look at like Fine Woodworking magazine and I would think to myself, like, this is attainable for me. I think I could get this good. And I believed in myself right off the bat. So I just became obsessive. I read all the books I could. I set up a little shop in my garage. I had a young son and a wife at the time and would go out after they went to bed and practice hand cutting dovetails. I stayed there for like 15 years and ran his shop for a while. And then we just kind of, part of it was that I was the youngest guy in that shop by probably 15 years. Still had a young family. These guys were kind of closer to retirement. And they kind of had like almost a semi-retired kind of mindset. They didn't really work full time. So I've realized I'm pushing for something more than these guys are. And I'm kind of the black sheep here. I'm the piece that doesn't fit. So I left and I started Hightail.
How would you describe Hightail Custom Coach? Like what is your specialty there?
Well, so what I really wanted to do specifically was restore vintage buses and then convert them into custom, like totally custom, high-end motor coaches. That's really been my dream, and that's the fantasy goal of the shop. And when I started the business, I had a project like that in the shop, and we finished that, and we've got another vintage bus in here, and we're working on it now. But we also came across battle-born batteries. We had a guy come in who wanted to do a swap. We started doing these battle-born jobs, adding solar and adding lithium ion and adding inverters and really kind of unlocking the potential of people's RVs that way. So Hightail started out as we want to build full conversions from the ground up, and has become more of that, and we do like we do remodels and service work and electrical upgrades, and so we've really kind of just become like a full service shop. And one of the things that I've found that's been kind of frustrating for me over the years is how many different shops I have to work with in order to get a project done, because this shop only does this and this shop only does that, and so to get one project done, you might have to go to this shop and get your body work and paint done, and then you're going to go over to this shop and get your fabrication work done. And I have a broad interest. I'm a pretty good fabricator. I'm a pretty good woodworker. I understand the electrical and the plumbing. We have a CNC Plaz, and so my goal is to be as like broadly serving as possible. We really want to be a one-stop shop. You can come here and you can have flooring done. You can have new cabinets made. You can have your batteries done. We can, or we can gut the whole thing and start over again if you want.
Wow.
So yeah, that's kind of what we're all about. So, and then also really we are not guys who have lost pride in our work. We're really focused on using, the best materials, focused on quality, focused on appearance. We want all of our wiring to be really tidy and clean. I call it Victron porn. There's a lot of it out there. You go online and you see these installs that people do, and it's just like, man, that's beautiful. I'm like, we want to make that too. So
what was it about the vintage buses that you wanted to work with? What interested you so much about the vintage bus?
Well, I'd love to say that it's something that I like discovered on my own, but it's not. In fact, we had a client, a guy that we had done an Eagle for. We'd done a bus conversion for this guy already, and he called us up and he said, "Hey, I have a 1947 Silverside and I want to restore it and convert it, and I want to take my grandkids around the country." We were like, why would you want to put all this money into a bus from the 40s? Right. And but then we got the bus in and started working on it, and I mean, as it came together, it was so beautiful and so unique. And I thought, like, I don't know if I want to do anything else. So we shot a couple of YouTube videos, and this might have been like 2011 or 2012. This was pretty early days of YouTube. And I remember talking to the guys I was working with and saying, "Hey, I'm going to film some of this coach. I'm going to put it on this thing called YouTube." And they're like, "You're wasting your time." And so we put it up there, and it started getting passed around. And then next thing we knew, we had a guy with a flexible, a 1963 flexible, I believe it was a Starliner, call us up, and we did his bus, and then we had a couple more flexibles come in, and then I was looking at it going, hey, it's been 7 years, I haven't done anything but vintage buses.
Oh, wow.
And so I kind of stumbled my way into it. But the thing about the vintage bus is that, well, they're very unique looking. So there's that, like as a canvas, as a platform for me to do my thing in. It's a really like a worthy platform, I think. It's really cool looking from the beginning. Also, I'm a guy who, if I get bored, it's like dangerous for me, right? Like not literally dangerous, but I just it's better to keep me busy, right? And so these vintage buses present a lot of challenges. So it just keeps me entertained. It keeps me busy. It keeps me, it gives me something to be obsessed about when I wake up at 4 a.m. And that's really the brunt of it. I mean, honestly, I wasn't even a bus guy to begin with. I just like doing fine work. I like the complexity of this work. I like how far I have to wander off into the woods in order to get this done. And then at the end, you kind of like come back and you've had this project for a year, maybe, or 18 months or more. Some of these projects go on for a long time. And you've always had these ideas in your head of what this is all going to look like. And then you get to this point where you finally get to see it. It's just very gratifying, So, yeah, I think that's probably the best I can answer that.
I like the lines on those old buses. They seem to have more shape to them than just a box,
Yeah, they've got sex appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flexibles in particular, I think I always say they have the most sex appeal out of any bus. We don't think of like buses as being automobiles with that, but those old flexibles have it.
And I would imagine, maybe I'm wrong on this, even new vehicles right now, cars, RVs, everything is having a supply issue. I would imagine for a vintage bus, you probably have a supply issue, but maybe for different reasons, like maybe just getting parts for something that is so old that maybe that's not being manufactured anymore. You've probably been accustomed to the supply chain issue.
Yeah. I mean, look, when I started the shop, a sheet of birch plywood was $44, and right now I think it's $108.
Wow.
So there's that. That's not awesome, but yeah, supply chain. I mean, there's no one for me to call and get a front quarter panel for a 1952 flexible Visicoach, other than this one dude in Florida named John Showman, who just happens to have a bunch of buses and loves to part them out, like that's, and his supply chain has been uninterrupted.
How do you decide when you're starting a custom build? How do you decide how modern or how technical to make the build? Is it up to the customer, or are you providing your input as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think most customers are going to want my input because you can get lost in the weeds pretty easily. If I just said, hey, tell me how many batteries, they're like, I don't know how many, right? So I try to break that stuff down into, let's like paint a picture of how you see yourself using it, right? And we start out with kind of a blurry image of that. And the more we talk about it and the more we kind of dial things in, the more refined that image becomes, right? And then we can kind of make some decisions there. I really want to build the rig that you want, I'm more trying to figure out what it is that my clients are after, maybe on a deeper level than even they're aware, Yeah, I mean, it is to some degrees up to them. So, for example, we did a 1952 Visicoach. We finished it last October. It's probably the most amazing thing I've ever built or worked on. Like I just am beside myself about it and super proud of it. And that guy, Andrew's his name. He's a tech guy, So we were going, lithium ion batteries, solar panels. I got to design some cool like switch panels that light up when you touch them, and for him, building the bus was like, it was like a pleasure for him. It was like a hobby for him, right? So it wasn't just about getting a bus for him to use. Like he was very process oriented. So we talked all the time, and we kind of like pushed each other quite a bit. Like we get on the phone and it was kind of like, well, what if we did this? It's like, well, what if you did that? And I'm like, ooh, what if? You know, right now we've got a 1964 GM 4106 in the shop. And this is for a guy who's had a number of buses. He's had buses for years. He's a kind of a no frills guy, you know, and he doesn't want all that clever stuff. You know, he wants a real simple, he wants a stout system, you know, that doesn't have a bunch of fancy components that he's going to need to replace. And so that one, we're putting 8Ds, Lifeline 8D batteries, and we're just keeping it very simple in the electrical. You know, plumbing type, those kinds of systems, like we want a system that works really well. There's not a lot of fudge factor there, right? Like we know what water pumps work, what filters work, what kind of system components we want to use, what kind of fittings we're going to use. So really it's just and usually with water tanks, it's just like, how big of a tank can we fit in here, right? And that's the one you go with. So that's kind of set in stone. And then same with the interior, you know, it's what are you after? So on this 4106, it came to us converted, and his hope was to keep as much as possible of the original interior in there, because it was in great shape. It wasn't the highest quality build per se, but it was in great shape. So, okay, we're married to oak. And it was a golden oak interior, but we refinished it and darkened it up and kind of modernized it there a little bit. But then all the work we're doing is oak, you know, whereas say that flexible we got to really be picky, right? So to do that flexible, I sourced a guy out of Utah, I believe it was. Maybe it was Idaho. I always get those two states confused. But anyway, we got Rift Sun walnut. So Rift Sun is just the way that it's milled out of the log, and every cut is perpendicular to the grain. And so instead of getting kind of the cathedrals that you see that you normally associate with wood grain, a Rift Sun cut is just a lot of straight lines. And so it's like the same kind of color that you're used to seeing in walnut, but it's a different grain style. And then we played with the direction as we went through the coach. Like sometimes we ran the veneer horizontally and other times we ran it vertically. And that was much more impactful because the grain itself was so linear. But more than that, we bought 20 sequenced sheets of veneer. So 20 sheets that look as close to one another as possible. And then we laid them all out on the shop floor and got the identical book matched pieces and matched up all the sheets. And then as you go into the coach, if you start at the back and you look at the walls, we've got matching sheets on each wall. So as you look, it's just like little details like that I got to pour over, and that made me very happy.
I feel like we're missing out on a community, Kenny. It seems like this is like you know how you have like van lifers and overlanders and RVers. I feel like there's a whole bus community that we're missing out.
Oh, dude, there is for sure. And the bus guys all kind of scoff at the normal RV guys because buses are far superior in every way, right? and there are some really important distinctions between like your modern kind of RV build and a bus. So, you know, like an RV is typically built off of a platform chassis. So you buy like a platform chassis from Freightliner, and you go to, you know, Monaco would have a whole parking lot full of these platform chassis. And then they bring them in and they start building an aluminum frame box on top of it, right? So you have really kind of two separate units. You have the chassis and then you have the RV box itself. But a bus is like a fully integrated structure. So, you know, and the way the flexibles are made, that's a fully integrated steel framework with riveted panels to kind of give it rigidity. And there is no possibility for the top half of it to collapse because it's all part of an integrated framework. The old GMs are built more like airplanes. They're just formed aluminum riveted together. There's not even really much framework to them. But these are, I mean, they're just insanely well-built rigs. We don't have to worry much about weight when we're doing it. And that's the other nice thing about using these old buses, like structurally, I mean, you run into some lemons for sure. But you find a good one and, you know, you repower it and it's not the thing's not falling apart. This is like a 70-year-old bus. It's still like stout,
You said you find a good one. Are you finding the buses for the restores, or are customers coming to you with the bus?
Both. So sometimes people have had a bus for a long time. Other times people call us up and they're like, "Hey, I'd like to do this. Can you help me out?" And so you guys, you're saying that you might be missing out on a community. There is a very active. I mean, even in the bus community, there are active sub communities. So if you have an old Eagle, there's Eagle communities, there's MCI communities, there's flexible communities, there's GM communities. So, and I'm a member of all those groups, like on Facebook. I just kind of keep an eye on all of them. I chat it up here and there, post pictures every once in a while. I just keep a database of all of the good buses that I'm aware of that are available across the country. So, and then every once in a while you find, like I knew a guy back east who started a conversion. He started repowering one of these old buses, and, circumstances led to him he needed to get rid of it. Right. So there's always a bus like that too, that's like already got like $70,000 worth of mechanical and body work done on it. And if you're serious about doing one of those, then that's the bus you want, because you'll save a lot of time and a lot of money.
When you say repowering, are you actually doing stuff to the chassis to improve, like dropping a new motor and stuff in those?
Yeah, they definitely need to be mechanically upgraded. So like that flexible had that before that bus came to me, the owner had purchased a 99 Freightliner motorhome chassis. And he and another guy, a mechanic, had basically cut that chassis apart, and they put the 5.9 Cummins and the 6-speed Allison. They put the axles, anti-lock brakes, power steering, suspension, all of that stuff from that modern motorhome and fit it onto the bus.
Oh, wow.
And so, it drives like a modern rig. I mean, it is a modern rig underneath. And you hear a lot of guys talking about, well, I'm going to take this motorhome chassis and I'm going to take this bus. I'm going to cut the bus off of its frame and then stick it onto the motorhome chassis. I've heard a lot of guys talk about doing that. I've never seen anyone successfully pull it off. I always tell people not to do it, because you're basically taking a bus and turning it into an RV at that point, right?
Yeah.
And so I just think it's way better if you can figure out the bracketing necessary to fit all that stuff in, and it can be done. We've done it. It's been done. But mostly guys are putting Cummins in them. The 8.3 ISC is a good one. Let's see. We did one that had a Series 60 Detroit in it. That was a really nice, clean install. And then this one had the 5.9 Cummins in it. So, but yeah, if you're going to put that much money into it and time into it, you need to mechanically modernize it.
So that's what you use the CNC for then, is you're making custom brackets and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. And I mean, we use it on a lot of these buses, they don't have bays. The old GMs have bays. Flexibles don't have any bays.
Oh, really?
So we take the bottom quarter panel off, the skin off of it, and then we frame in a bunch of narrow bays, and then we cut those up and hinge them and basically build bays onto the bus.
Oh, wow.
So
that's cool.
A lot of formed metal under there and a lot of framing work, to be done in that regard as well. So, but I mean, you'd be amazed at how often you need little brackets for things. We've got a 2008 Newmar in the shop right now that we're putting 4 game changers and 1,600 watts of solar on, right? Wow. And we're mounting everything up between the frame rails and the bay. So we really try to not take your bay space. Space is a premium. And so we'll put in the extra work and the extra brain power to figure out how we're going to fit all of these things in and not cost you a bunch of bay space, right? And one of the things, I'm a detail-oriented guy, and we want to be known as a shop who really focuses on the details. We're not going to leave an inverter just parked on a wall in a bay where you can slam a lawn chair against it. So we might form up a metal cover that gives you access to the switch and the lights, but protects your inverter from everything. So we do a lot of stuff like that as well. So
I like what you're saying, Aaron, about, you used the term earlier about unlocking the full potential. So not just in like power, but adding bays that maybe weren't there before. So you're doing a lot of custom, like you're not just restoring something back to factory, I guess, but I mean you're really unlocking potential. You're really doing upgrades along the way as well. I'm curious, what's the oldest bus you've ever worked on?
The 1947 Silverside is the oldest one, and that one can be found online. There's a great video. A news company did a story on this client and the bus, and if you search on YouTube, you search like "old bus restored by grandfather's love," that'll get you there to the video that was done on this bus. But it was just a really cool project. And he said he came in, and this wasn't a Hightail project. This was a Paradise Coach project. So I worked on it extensively at this previous shop. But he came in and he says, "I'd like an Art Deco interior for this." And we went, "Sure. What's Art Deco?" and so I remember we bought a bunch of coffee table books, and just we're like thumbing through them, trying to just figure out, like, get your finger on the pulse of what the heck that means. And I mean, it's Art Deco-ish for sure. It's a cool looking interior. I've spent a lot of years since then thinking about what does it mean to be like Art Deco or streamline interior. These kinds of design aesthetics from like the 40s and the 50s. And I feel like I've hit it now. I've found kind of the little details that really make it for me. So, but yeah, as you were saying, I view it more as a resto mod project. They're like resto mod buses.
I don't think I've ever heard that term before. What does that mean?
Resto mod means like restoration and modification. So
okay.
If you take like a 69 Camaro, but you put modern engine, transmission, suspension in it, so it looks like that classic car, but it operates like a modern beast,
Yeah.
that would be a resto mod. Or maybe you take out the original dash and you make like a different custom dash for it, or new dash vents. Those are all, delete all the badges off of it. Those are all kind of resto mod things that you can do.
Okay. And if somebody goes to your website, can they see builds that you've done from the past? Do you keep them up on the website? Is there like a gallery or anything like that?
Yeah. There's a gallery. I mean, you'll see a lot more if you go to our social media. So Instagram, Hightail Custom Coach, Facebook as well. So you'll see a lot more stuff there than just because we for a while we had our Instagram feed just kind of uploading onto the website. But we're a small shop, so I kind of like, I'll put my focus on to the website, get it up to snuff, and then I'll like get back out to the shop and work. And then a year later, I'm like, oh, it's time to update the website again.
Okay.
So we try to keep up on it as best we can. But at the end of the day, and that's part of the reason why it's a great idea for me to be talking to you guys, right? It's like, it's easy for me to just be buried in the shop. That's kind of who I am. It's who I've always been, and it's what I'm really comfortable doing. And talking to some of my kind of business mentors and so forth, it's like, hey, Aaron, at some point, you can do the best work in the world, but if nobody knows who you are, so it's something I'm working on, keeping more updated.
Talking about some of the work that you do you have favorite features that you've been installing?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that come to mind. I mean, I love the Victron inverters and the lithium-ion batteries. Like I was saying earlier, they really just unlock the potential of the rig. And so, I mean, I explain this to people quite a bit, but it's, if you have a fifth wheel, that rig is meant to be plugged in. And if you need to go park at the casino overnight, you're going to be really minding your P's and Q's to make sure that you got enough power left to bring your slide outs in and to bring your leveling jacks up in the morning before you leave, right? Or are you going to need to be running off your alternator, your rig, or whatever, right? But like in RVs and buses also, there's always been a main AC panel and an inverter sub panel. And so you get your microwave and you get your refrigerator and you get some outlets all the time. Everything else, you better be running that generator or plugged in, right? And it's so cool and having to design around those limitations for people for the first 15 years of my career. And then all of a sudden, these batteries come out and these great inverters come out, and it's like, no, now you can do everything. Now you can do everything. You can run your AC units. You can go park in the middle of nowhere for 48 hours and mind what you're doing. But that's pretty awesome. Beyond that, I'm a lighting nerd. I have been in beautiful conversions where the lighting didn't look good and therefore the interior didn't look good. And I have been in cruddy conversions that nailed the lighting and it looked amazing. Lighting is something that I love, making my own light fixtures from the ground up, and just the impact. It's really, if you're going to be really picky about lighting, and I am super picky about lighting, and just the way that it comes out and what's it going to hit. Can you see the diodes from the LEDs? I want good, consistent light. I don't like weird shadows, so a lot of that you got to try to intuit when you're building, because if you want anyone to be able to afford to do this, you don't have to nail it on the first shot, but you got to get real close, because you don't have all year to build it and build it again and build it again and work out the little details, right? I love that process of like imagining how I can make a light fixture in this particular space work and cast the exact kind of light that I want, and then building it and then seeing like, oh, that's pretty close, just a little tweak here, a little tweak there, and boom, it's done. So I love that. And then the other thing I'd say is, I identify as a woodworker, and that's how I started my career. It's the thing that I've poured the most hours into developing skills at, and over the years, I feel as though I've developed a set of just little details, the way that I handle little transitions that are both quality solutions, but also they look good and they're kind of unique to me, I think. So I'm a student of woodworking, and if I saw a piece of furniture that was built by James Krenov, or even built by somebody who just idolized James Krenov, I can tell you just by looking at it, or Sam Maloof, or so many of these other kind of famous woodworkers who probably nobody knows who those guys are, but they're famous in my world, right? And so, like, I like to believe that I've kind of done similar things in my career where, I'm not saying I'm a Sam Maloof or a James Krenov. I'm definitely not. But there are things that I've figured out that I love, little details that I love, little things that really matter to me. And the other thing is, I think most average people won't notice them, but subconsciously they'll enjoy it. And I love that too. I love doing little things that, like, subconsciously, when you miss on these little, this is what I tell the guys, you miss on these little details, and people may not be able to point out, hey, there's something wrong there, but somewhere in their head, they feel it. And those kinds of things quietly ruin your life. You go through life, you experience them everywhere you go. I just want, when somebody sets foot into one of our projects, I want there to be kind of like a, and you don't even know why. But it might just be because of the way we rounded that edge over, or the way that we stepped that dinette booth seat out into the aisle a little bit to create a little bit more butt room, but also to not take, but maybe it doesn't take away some shoulder space or something, right? So I honestly don't remember the question.
You answered it. But no, that's a lot of thought. That's a lot of detail that goes into the builds. That's awesome to hear.
So when you're doing a ground up custom coach, I imagine that takes 2 years maybe, or at least a year and a half to complete. How do you fit in all these other jobs, like the solar installations? Like, do you have to, how do you work your calendar when you're working on something that takes so long, and then you're also fitting in these smaller jobs as well?
Well, so luckily our business hasn't grown to the point that it's been a huge issue yet. Now we have a 2-bay shop, and so we have one full long-term project in one bay, and in the other bay we're just getting them in and out. We're going to see five rigs in 8 days starting last week up until the end of this week. So we're really hustling in that other bay. Honestly, I set up the business to do these full conversions, but doing these battery swaps and solar upgrades and stuff we're getting really good at it now. So we're fast and we know what we're getting into. And I hardly even have to, like, at this point, I just walk out and I tell the guys what the system's going to be, and they're just diving right into it, Whereas, there was, for a while there, as we were kind of learning and getting better, there was a lot of research, a lot of diagram drawing, a lot of instruction books, So we're like getting past that point. And I think a lot of guys probably don't talk about that stuff, but it's true. We all deal with it. There's a learning curve. And we get a lot of rigs. We get a lot of rigs in here where somebody, maybe they found someone to install their batteries and inverters and they screwed something up, and it's not working. Or, worst case scenario, they're losing batteries or whatever it is. And people can be really upset about that. And, if somebody sends you out of their shop and it's not working right, like, you should be upset about that. What I always see is like, here's these guys were in over their head. And I've been there. I've been in and over my head before. I kind of like being over my head. But if you find yourself in over your head, that means when you get home at night, you need to open up the internet and you need to research until you're not in over your head anymore. It's not just send people out the door with stuff not working, right? Yeah, I don't know how I got onto that, but but we're getting past that point now where, like, I have to spend all night researching, how are we going to do this thing? We know. So that's been great.
And your guys, you have I imagine you have a couple guys working for you. Are they, what are their back? How do you find somebody to hire that you can do custom work?
Right. Well, so it's tricky. I'm lucky to live in Lane County, and Lane County was the birthplace of Country Coach and Marathon.
Really?
Monaco used to be here. Oregon Motor Coach is still here. So there's still a lot of guys that have been in the coach industry. So if I need a coach guy, I can probably find one. But it's not the most important thing to me. I look for guys that I want smart guys, and I want guys that have kind of a chip on their shoulder in the same way that I did. That they want to learn and they believe in themselves. So, like, if you believe that you can do the thing and you're willing to put in the work to do it, right? That's the kind of thing that I'm looking for, because I love to teach too. So it's like, do you have the personality type that you can listen to me go on and on about how, I don't know, why inverters have a problem distinguishing between or switching from a parallel waveform and a out of phase waveform. It's like, if your eyes don't roll in the back of your head when I start talking about stuff like that, then you might do all right at Hightail Custom Coach. And I'm real lucky. I got two guys here. I got one guy who's my woodworking guy, and I got another guy who's like my fabricator, electrical, mechanical guy. Both of them are really into what they're doing. Both of them are like kind of lifelong learners, and they're both they're really into being makers. That's the other thing. It's like, Robert in particular, this young guy that is my fabricator guy, he's like, when he first came to work here, he went out and bought him, all I had was a MIG welder, and he wanted to TIG weld. So he went out and bought himself a TIG welder and started coming in on Saturdays and teaching himself how to TIG weld. And I was like, you're all right, Robert. So it's stuff like that, that's the most important. The rest I can teach.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually, because you can't go to school to learn. There's not a degree in custom fabrication, you can go to school and learn how to weld or learn how to do carpentry, but the custom aspect is completely different.
Yeah, it takes a certain kind of thinking. I was poking around online and I came across this discussion about, and I'm not fully sure that I understand it, but they were talking about people being shape rotators. So it's like a personality type. Are you a shape rotator? And it's like a person who can visualize a shape in their head and rotate it around and understand it from, multiple angles. My son is this way. Like, we were doing a Volkswagen when he was young. I remember if there's a bolt, let's say there's a bolt and it's a 5/8. I walk over to the wall and I grab a 9/16 and a 5/8 and an 11/16 because I'm not really sure which one it is, right? Whereas he can look at the bolt and walk over to the wall and grab the right wrench, because his mind works that way. You need to be able to do that kind of stuff. If you can really visualize something in your head and really kind of imagine the process, really put yourself in, you're imagining yourself laying on your back, reaching up in there with a drill gun, trying to shoot that screw in, and you go, nah, I think that's going to be impossible. We need to come up with something else. If you can catch that before you're actually on your back with the screw gun in your hand going, crap, I just spent 2 days building something it's impossible to install, that's a pretty key. If you can do that kind of thing, then you'll do all right, in this shop anyway.
I'd like to talk a little bit about your customer base as well, Aaron.
Sure.
When they come to you, or has it changed throughout the years? Are you finding that the customer base is getting younger? Or are they getting older? Are they full-timing, part-timing? Or is it just a little bit of, demographic of just a little bit of everything?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of everything. We've had, for a while there, it was getting younger. It is getting younger. I would say it's probably trending towards younger. I still have clients that are, in their twilight years. There's some younger folks that are getting into it, mostly kind of techie people, who I think they're probably attracted to the notion of living in an RV for the same reasons I'm attracted to the notion of building one, because they're kind of neat. If you think about it, it's like the ultimate gadget. And so I've had a few of those clients too. I'd say a pretty even smattering of full-timers and kind of the weekend warrior types. And it used to be a lot more full-timers, but anymore. And I keep kind of waiting for it to be that way again, because, especially in 2022 here now, everybody's, working remotely, and internet's great and getting better. Pretty soon, you'll be able to, everybody, a huge swath of the country could just live nomadically if they wanted to, right? And I think a lot more people are becoming intrigued by that. That's what I hope to see. I'd love to build kind of like mobile, like a RV/studios or things like that. I'd love to do some of that kind of stuff for people if I can get the opportunity.
Yeah, and we're seeing a little bit more of that too. Even employers are more open to the idea of people working remotely, even if you don't work for yourself. Even an employer is okay with you working away from the office per se.
Yeah.
If people are interested in anything that you do, even something like upgrading their electrical system, adding solar, all that kind of stuff, how do they get in touch with you?
Email's a great way to start. It's just Aaron, Aaron, at hightailcustomcoach.com, and that's HIGHTAIL. customcoach.com. So that's a great way to start. You can give me a ring. You can send me a message on Facebook. You can, send me a message on Instagram. That's the best way to go. And then, we can start up a conversation about it.
Yeah. And we'll put links to all your social media in our notes and to your website as well. I actually have your website open as we've been talking, looking through some of your pictures. Yeah. The woodwork in these coaches is incredible. So.
Oh, thanks, man.
And I think I know the answer to this, just taking consideration of just how long it takes you to build one or restore one. But do you have stock? Could somebody contact you and say, hey, I saw such and such bus on your website. Is that for sale for me just to purchase?
I've never had the capital to do that. I've never tried to drum up the capital to do it either. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe I could. So the short answer is no. You're kind of in it. You're in it for the long haul with me, buddy. If you want to do one of these, But I would love to be able to do that in the future. And I've actually, I have this like fantasy of us putting out YouTube videos and maybe generating an income stream through YouTube that would be sufficient to bankroll something like that. And who knows what the future will bring, right? You never know, But yeah, we'd love the opportunity. So if anybody out there wants to bankroll a bus conversion, hit me up.
Well, I think that's all of our questions, Aaron. Is there anything that you think we missed that you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, I think we probably hit it all.
Yeah.
I think you guys know everything about me now.
And for those that didn't catch where you're located, it's Eugene, Oregon.
Yep. Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah. Nice area to go visit if you want to get work done too.
Yeah, it's the best place to visit if you want to get work done.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, I mean, I love it here, man. We're 45 minutes from the ocean. We're 45 minutes from the mountains. We're like 2 hours away from the high desert. And so we really kind of got it all. I mean, I'm born and raised in Eugene. I've never thought about living somewhere else. Anytime I go travel somewhere else, I'm just like, get me back to Eugene. I have this memory of going to Maui one time and coming back and just like the relief of the crisp air here, from being in that humid environment.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh God, I love it. I love it. We have really good water too. So
yeah. Cool.
So there you go. You can have your work done there and then take your rig out immediately to somewhere nice.
Yep, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for your time today, Aaron. We know you're a busy man, and we appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us about what you do and all the intricacies involved in doing these custom builds.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. It was awesome.
I don't know about you, but for me, that episode went by really fast. I think I could listen to Aaron all day talk about his passion of building custom coaches. It's funny how he went to questioning the first client's idea of restoring a coach that is decades old to only wanting to do them once he saw how beautiful it turned out. Owning a business is already difficult in itself, and adding the fact that these buses can be 70 years old really introduces a whole new level of complexity. But not only does Aaron sound like he is up for the challenge, but it sounds like he thrives on it. So if you're interested in learning more about Hightail Custom Coach or would like to see some of the photos of his builds, check them out at hightailcustomcoach.com or Hightail Custom Coach on Instagram. We want to thank our sponsors, Battleborn Batteries and Wholesale Warranties, for sponsoring this and every episode. We could not do the show without them. Take care and safe travels, everybody. This episode is brought to you by Battleborn Batteries. Battleborn Batteries are the best name in the RV and marine industry. These batteries are designed to replace your existing lead-acid batteries. They come in a variety of dimensions and amp-hour capacities. This ensures there's a Battleborn battery that is right for your needs. These batteries are backed by a 10-year warranty, allowing you to get out there and stay out there. The best solution for your battery anxiety.
Whether your adventure is on the road, on the water, or off the grid, Battleborn batteries keep you out there longer.